Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me for this episode, basically every episode, are my colleagues, co-hosts, and friends, BJ Cunningham and Anthony DeBundo. And together, the three of us. First of all, we'll wish you a happy new year, as this will be our last get-together before we get into 2024. And to celebrate, we're going to break down the two Premier League matches on Thursday, as well as all 10 matches coming our way over the weekend. Touch on some La Liga, Serie A, give out our three-leg moneyline underdog parlay, and our favorite bets in the Premier League for this upcoming weekend. But before we do all of that, a reminder that Wondergoal is proudly presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. It believes every sport should be epic, every tournament, every game, every point, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar, see for yourself when you sign up today with the code ACTION, and you'll get $365 in bonus bets when you bet just $1. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 or older, and you have to be present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, we'll start with Thursday. We'll start with Tottenham and Brighton, and it should be a pretty fun one here. Spurs are a plus 150 road favorite, very nominal road favorite. Brighton plus 162, and the draw here is plus 275. Anthony, Spurs come out with the win over Everton the other day, but it was kind of more of the same, right? They just are clinical and they win the big moments. Otherwise, they were. I mean, I don't know how did they win that game? And I think we've left a bunch of Spurs matches asking ourselves that exact question. So I think there's some value on Brighton here at home.
Yeah, I agree entirely. This line has moved towards Spurs over the last 3 or 4 days. But I think Brighton have some clear advantages here. First of all, they have 2 extra days of rest. They played Thursday, whereas Tottenham played Saturday. They're at home. And if you just go by the raw data, like these two teams haven't been that different this year. Brighton have conceded in every match. That has certainly hurt them. And they've dropped points as a result of not being able to keep enough clean sheets, or any clean sheets for that matter. But pretty much the only clear advantage for me is Tottenham in goal, because over the course of the season, Vicario has the best underlying numbers by post shot expected goals in the entire league, and the combination of Steele and Verbruggen for Brighton have been a minus 5.3, which is second worst only to Forest in terms of shot stopping. Not great that the two teams I love to bet on have the worst goalies. But Brighton have actually conceded fewer expected goals this year than Spurs. And if you asked any casual fan who's got the better defense, they would probably tell you Tottenham, but really it hasn't been the case. Even in 11 on 11, you can take out like the outlier game that Spurs had against Chelsea. Expected goals per 90 minutes allowed in 11 on 11, not including penalties. Brighton 1.31, Tottenham 1.35. So they're pretty comparable. And really the whole profile, I think this matchup, Tottenham will press. They will commit numbers forward regardless of the score. That's why they've been so bad at holding leads this year. Ange Ball is going to Ange Ball regardless of the scoreline. And so that kind of invites pressure onto Brighton, which Brighton has wanted. Brighton wants to bait the trap. They want you to press them so they can try to get their transition moments where I think their attack is just as good as Spurs on the break. The biggest concern here for Tottenham, like the spine of the team, is Emerson Royale, Ben Davis, and Oliver Skip. Because of injuries, Romero is out, Van de Ven still out, of course, Basuma suspended. The spine triangle of the team, the two defensive center backs and the defensive midfielder, are just not Premier League top half quality players at those positions. And I really think it's hard for them to overcome that defensively. Not even just like tactically, but personnel-wise. And you saw it. I mean, there were tons of space for Everton to break into. Everton, of course, are more direct. But I think Brighton are just as capable of playing through pressure. No Matoma for Brighton here. That hurts. But Ferguson will be back. So really, I like the goals at home. I'm surprised by this line. I make make Brighton a favorite, about a quarter goal favorite. Have these two teams roughly even on a neutral. So I like the Seagulls, and if Vicario continues to stand on his head, maybe Tottenham can squeeze by here. But we've seen other fraudulent defenses get exposed this week, and I think Tottenham's one that's going to go down on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think that's well put. BJ, anything for you on Spurs and goals?
Yeah, I agree. I'll just add on to Anthony. What Anthony said is that for Tottenham to be successful in this match, they are going to have to hit home with their high press because Arsenal obviously was able to do that against Brighton when they were at home. Tottenham has the best passes per defensive action in the Premier League, but the problem is when Brighton beats that first line of the pressure, like Anthony said, the spine is not there from the normal what you'd have normal center backs and central midfielders. We've seen the center back pairing of either Ben Davies, Eric Dyer, Emerson Royale, whatever combination you want to put there. Basically, no, the fact that Romero and Van de Ven are not there, we've seen 3 matches of that. And Tottenham conceded 6.4 expected goals and 5 big scoring chances. Like, it was a very bad performance. And what's been interesting, I thought, with Brighton is that teams like Brentford and Crystal Palace are actually coming up and trying to press them. You watch the Crystal Palace match, their only goal came off of a high turnover. And obviously that's what Tottenham's going to do here. But overall for the season, Brighton has been the second best build-up completion percentage. So they're still a very good build-up team. And I think the loss of Matoma is a little overblown. He's obviously great in terms of ball carrying, but his goal production numbers and assist numbers haven't really been that good this season. He's only been at 0.35 XG plus XA per 90 minutes. Brighton can very easily just swing Adingra out to the left side. They can play João Pedro on the right and Ferguson up top, and it could be a very formidable attack. So I would agree with Anthony. I think this line's a little crazy. I have Brighton projected at plus 117. You're going to want to fade Tottenham without their 2 center backs because of how exposed they leave themselves with their high pressing and their build-up structure. So a good spot here for Brighton. A good get-right spot for Brighton.
Yeah, and Postecoglou has said that he's given Højbjerg and Dyer basically like the you can go seek out a transfer now talk. So I don't imagine either of them feature in this match, given that, but you don't know for sure. But yeah, he prefers Royale. I mean, if I told you at the beginning of the season Emerson Royale was going to start at center back for Spurs multiple matches, you would have been like, that's not great. Now they are going to buy somebody in January, so we'll reassess when we get there. But Romero's going to be out a couple months here, so they're going to have some struggling times here up ahead on the fixture list, and I think that starts Wednesday. So we'll see. Go goals.
Okay, Arsenal and West Ham up next. The Gunners, a chunky minus 334 favorite on the 3-way line. West Ham
dominated by Liverpool, according to some people.
Yeah.
Dominated. Dewar wasn't even in the match.
We've got more to talk about that
7-0.
match coming up.
We're gonna have to recap that. I think.
Oh my god!
I feel like we should recap it a little bit.
I mean, what are you talking about? They got dominated. They didn't get dominated.
I had a feeling this was coming, so I tweeted that I was going to take a victory lap on the pod.
Yeah,
it wasn't necessarily that Liverpool completely dominated the match. It was just that Arsenal were not able to keep control of it whatsoever, and they really, I thought, struggled. And really, like the center backs played really well, and that snuffed out the attack. And we're going to talk about Arsenal's defense in a minute because I'm still very bullish on it. But
Best defense in the world.
Arsenal had no real chances after the opening 15 minutes. And thus, like that's kind of my point.
Liverpool
they couldn't keep control. They couldn't keep control, and they struggled to do so. And as a result, Liverpool kind of got the game style they wanted. Liverpool were able to turn it into chaotic and get on the break a lot. They didn't create much off of it, except for the time they completely bypassed the midfield and then Salah, did Zinchenko. So from a perspective of like the title race, I don't think it changes anything. To be honest, I think it helped Manchester City a lot, who should very clearly still be the favorite. But Arsenal's attack not doing anything against Liverpool after the 15th minute, just doesn't scream to me like a team that's taken a step forward in attack. And I still think they're worse. And thus, I'm going to bet the under in this game on Wednesday. I already did, and I hate it.
Yeah, this one has no betting interest for me at all. I think exact score 1-0 Arsenal maybe. Like this is This looks like a sleepy.
I mean, West Ham has been playing the dregs lately. They haven't really been playing really stiff competition. The best couple teams that they've played, as of recently, they got pounded by Liverpool in the EFL Cup. They played obviously against Tottenham and won 2-1 on two just hilarious errors from Tottenham. But outside of that, they've been kind of just playing bottom tier teams for a long time now, and we haven't really seen them go up against, like, obviously outside the Liverpool EFL Cup match, against the top tier. Yeah, West Ham's defense has been pretty bad against the top tier teams, and they've been playing a lot of teams in the bottom half of the table and overperforming against them. So this might be a nice game for an Arsenal alts, maybe -2.5, or Arsenal team total over 2.5, something like that, to really just hone in on the West Ham defense, who is a little overdue to concede quite a few.
Yeah, the Hammers continue to what is it? 5. Their goal differential over the last 3 matches is even 5-4, 5 against. They allowed 5 goals to Fulham, and then won 3-0 and 2-0 against Wolves and United. I feel like that's a pretty fair kind of statement on what this West Ham team is. It's just when it goes wrong, BJ, and this, I guess, it kind of lends into your point, it's going to go wrong very splendidly. And it could go wrong against anybody. But yeah, like I said, I got nothing here, Anthony.
Yeah, so like West Ham, if you think about their attack, it's extremely efficient on set pieces. So if they get a lot of those, they're dangerous. But how many are they really getting here against Arsenal, a team who's, damn near pitched a shutout against Brighton at home in their last match, and have, most of their back line fully healthy here. And like, I'd prefer if Tomiyasu played over Zinchenko for defensive purposes, but given how much possession they're going to have, it's probably going to be Zinchenko. That's the only thing that scares me about this under, is Zinchenko against Kudus, because otherwise I think West Ham's attack is pretty much drawing dead. I don't think they have much of a path here. They have no like quality midfield, passing to play through the press that Arsenal's going to have. It's going to be a lot of balls over the top. It's going to be a lot of, like, if they can get Paquetá in dangerous areas, then they're going to be really dangerous. But like, can they even get to that point? I don't really know. I'm kind of skeptical of that. I have West Ham like pretty low on my like how many goals projection. And like I said, we've talked about this Arsenal attack. We're dealing with 2 attacks here that we're at the halfway point of the season. Both of these attacks are outside the top 8 in non-penalty expected goals for in the season. And Arsenal have ticked up a little bit since Jesus came back, but then they go and put in a performance against Liverpool where they failed to really create anything after the first 20 minutes. So I just don't really see Arsenal running up the score here. I think this is a grinded out 1-0, 2-0 kind of win for the Gunners. I show a little bit of value on Arsenal, but I'm going to pass on that and instead take under 3. I really think Arsenal would have to score 3 for this to go over, maybe 4. Arsenal shutout win maybe, but I'm going to take the Gunners at home to continue to be elite defensively, where they have conceded basically next to nothing all year long.
Yeah, since October 1st, 9.6 expected goals against by Understat, and that's 4 goals better than the next best defense in the Premier League. Okay, Luton Town and Chelsea up next. Luton Town is plus 425 at home. Chelsea minus 167 on the road. That's pretty steep price to have to pay on Chelsea as a road favorite. And the draw here is 3-1. BJ, you're the only one with anything here. Just a little bit of context. Since October 1st, Chelsea, once again by Understat's model, and they've played 1 more match than Liverpool and Villa, and 2 more than City. So a little bit of a grain of salt, but they lead the Premier League in expected points. Yet, it's the same story with this team.
Again.
Yeah, here we go again. Is right. What do you got for us, BJ?
Yeah, I actually am showing a little value on Chelsea here, but I actually like the over a lot more. Best price you can find is minus 135 right now. And you hit the nail on the head, Michael, is that their underlying numbers are awesome. 12.5 expected goals created in their last 6 matches, with a penalty, obviously, but created close to 3 against Crystal Palace on Wednesday. And I think the biggest thing for Chelsea now is they have a proven finisher that's actually healthy, and that's Chris Nkunku. He obviously started today. alongside Nico Jackson. And the biggest thing for Chelsea, they've changed their build-up structure. Early on in the season, they were using a 3-1-6, and it was just incredibly disjointed because obviously there were a lot of new players. And once they got in the final third, they just honestly, everything just kind of fell apart. They've switched to a 3-2-5, which is what a lot of the elite teams are using nowadays. And so with a disjointed build-up structure, like they were still averaging close to 1.7 non-penalty expected goals per 90 minutes. With, again, with a structure that wasn't working for the personnel they had. Now they have a good build-up structure with a proven finisher in there, and I think their offense is going to continue to get better. And Luton Town, I love Luton Town to death, but their defense has been a disaster. Since the start of November, 20.7 expected goals allowed, only allowed 14. Last match against Sheffield United, who hadn't even cleared 1.5 expected goals in any Premier League match this season, they allowed over 3 expected goals. They're obviously without Tom Locklear. They're going to be without Issa Kabore and Marvelous Nakamba. So basically 3 of the cornerstones of their defense. This could get really, really bad. So again, I am showing value on Chelsea, but Chelsea's transition defense has not been that great this season. They're 19th in final third of box entry conversion rate allowed. So Luton Town does have a path because they're obviously going to play very direct. Projecting 3.6 goals for this one. So I do like over 2.5 at -135. And I am showing value on Chelsea. But you got to pay a pretty steep price for that. And I may end up being on them, but probably not.
Yeah, and Nkunku was okay today. I didn't think he was like awesome. Played 70 minutes, created one chance, one shot himself. There was some feeling out period. I'm excited to see what this looks like with Sterling back potentially, and Palmer, because now you have a lot of shots. Like between Nkunku, Jackson, Palmer, and Sterling, you're getting a top 4 level production in shots. The problem has actually been, like you said, BJ, the defense. Conceded over 1 XG today to Palace, like huge chance to Elise just falling asleep at the back post. The midfield is really energetic and good in ball winning, but the back line, man, it's like very uncertain. So yeah, I generally lean this way as well. I think Chelsea scores multiple here, but not going to play this one.
Okay, on to Villa and Burnley next. Villa's prohibitive -275 favorite at home. Burnley traveling at 7-1. Draw +425. Anything for you, BJ?
No, if I were to play anything, it might be some Aston Villa alts here because of what happened in the previous meeting at Turf Moor. Burnley tried to press Aston Villa, and they just played right through them and created chance after chance after chance. Villa, they're going to play this dangerous high line, but does Burnley really have the guys to get in behind and actually create chances off it? I'm not so sure about that. They're a build-up team. Like, they want to play short passes through teams. So it's going to be very difficult for them to actually play through whatever Aston Villa is doing. And I know it's Unai Emery, and he's never going to stop using this high line. But when you're up 2-0 at Old Trafford, like, maybe just slink back into a defensive structure and not just give United the chance to just play balls in behind. But what do I know? That's right. I'm just a podcaster. I'm not a soccer manager. So, but yeah, if I were to play anything, it'd be some Aston Villa alts. Burnley's offense continues to just produce next to nothing, and they're not going to be able to play balls over top of Aston Villa's high line. So I don't really project any value in this one, so I'm passing, but if I were to go anywhere, that's where I'd go.
BJ and I have been disagreeing a lot. We had a really fun time in the Action Network Discord on Boxing Day. At least I had a really fun time. I don't think he did.
No,
because BJ was on Villa and it was 2-0, and I was on the United team total over. And there was a brief moment where we were going to cash both bets because United ties it up, and then Villa had a huge chance through McGinn. They didn't quite get there, but I agree generally in this matchup. Like, I think that Burnley doesn't have the runners to expose them. They don't have the passing range to get in behind against Villa and successfully, negotiate the offside trap effectively. But like, the thing is with this Villa team, and the reason that I really just think they're seriously overvalued at this point, and you've seen it now, like they struggled to break down a very low Sheffield block. Then they couldn't hold off a very mediocre Manchester United team with a 2-goal lead, who kept getting in behind over and over again. When you play that style, you don't even need to you can be great at doing the offside trap over and over again, but a team can get lucky once. and time up a run correctly, a long ball over the top, and then all of a sudden you're down a goal, or all of a sudden, this match is more competitive. I think Burnley can keep enough of the ball here because they're going to try to play through pressure, and I don't think they're going to have a ton of problem with Villa's press, which is like pretty average from a pressing perspective. Like, it's not a good press. So, yeah, I'm tempted by the under here. Just because I think Villa's attack is just overvalued in general, and I think Burnley doesn't really match up well here. But this one for me is a pass because Burnley, even against Liverpool, like they got away with it because Trafford was really good, but like they conceded almost 3 post shot XG in Liverpool and probably like weren't really ever in that game. So that was at home. So I'm not really interested in backing them here.
Do you want to know who Villa has coming out of the FA Cup break, Michael?
Is it the revenge game?
It's the Everton revenge game.
Yeah.
The rubber match.
It's the rubber match. That's right.
That's right.
That'll be a fun one.
Is it at Everton? It's got to be at Everton, right?
It is at Everton. Yes.
I'm going to be honest. Like, Everton should be favored in that match. I don't think
they should be
yet. Everton should 100% be a favorite. If they're not, I'm going to bet them again.
They're like the 7th best team in the Premier League now.
It is interesting though. Like, and we'll talk. Let's save that conversation for 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't do the January 7th podcast here on December 27th. We'll do the December 28th podcast, which continues with Palace and Brentford. The Bees. It's getting a little pear shaped here for Brentford. 4 on the spin they've dropped, and
I didn't think they played bad today.
They didn't play bad today.
It was like a series of hilarious mistakes. Like the 3 of the 4 goals were just like the most like tomfoolery goals you could have possibly given up.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, okay, that counts against them. But like structurally they were fine. They created more chances than Wolves. It was just like that day. I don't know. But they've had 4 in a row. So now Thomas Frank, oh boy. I think he's fine, obviously. But
no, he's not. He's not even close to getting fired. Don't worry about that.
But I will say, like, we always talk about like the times to bet Brentford, and they kind of seem to be every week because we can find a time to spot. But this is a good time.
That's the thing. They've been good as a favorite this year against these lower table teams. So now we just bet them every week because it used to be, when they're a dog we like them, but when they're a favorite maybe pass. But now it's like, the market's just wrong. Surely we know better.
But
we're just going to keep losing.
I think I like it. I like these spots just as much as I like them when they're punching up in a big 6, right? Like 4 in a row they've lost. They've won 1 of their last 7. This is buy low Brentford, man. And against the Palace team that I also don't think is as bad as the recent results has shown. They were unlucky today to lose to Chelsea. Was at the 95th minute or whatever, and that penalty to go down 2-1.
Yeah, dumb penalty.
Yeah. Bad.
They run the gauntlet here too. They also just played Liverpool, City, Brighton, and Chelsea in a 4-match period over the festive fixtures here.
And you look at Brentford, and you thought that this part of the schedule would be a good time for them to make a little bit of hay with Luton, Brighton, Sheffield United, Villa, and Wolves. You'd expect them to come out with more than just 3 points over that 5-game jaunt. But you look at the Brentford expected goals and underlying metrics over the past couple months here since October 1st. Not bad at all. Plus 6, just north of plus 6 in terms of an expected goal differential. By expected points in that time period, they're right around where Newcastle, Bournemouth, and Everton are. Like, this is still a really good team, and I think that they're better than Palace. I know they're going on the road here, but as an underdog, I'm in. BJ.
Go ahead, Anthony.
They have a positive expected goal difference in their stretch where they have 1 win in 7 games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a good team.
It's by low Brentford. That's right.
Here we come.
So I do like Brentford. I'll save that for maybe the underdog segment. But I actually do like the over here. What's funny is that since Brentford got promoted to the Premier League, this matchup has ended 1-1 or 0-0 all 5 times that they have faced off against each other. But what I will say about Crystal Palace is they're starting to play more open. They're starting to press a little bit more, and they're starting to try to build out of the back. And for me, it kind of makes sense. Like, Roy Hodgson sees it as, okay, I have Eze and I have Elise, these 2 unbelievable dribblers, ball carriers. We probably should get them the ball instead of just trying to send long balls to them. So especially today against Chelsea and against Brighton, Crystal Palace was trying to build out of the back. They were trying to create high turnovers, which goes against what Roy Hodgson normally does. And it has shown up in the underlying data as well, because in 8 of their last 9 matches, there has been at least 2.5 expected goals created. And for the season, Palace matches are averaging about close to 2.7 expected goals per 90 minutes. Even today against Chelsea, 3.5 expected goals created from open play. For Brentford, from their perspective, what kind of has gone wrong here? I think it's pretty clear they are missing Aaron Hickey and Rico Henry at the fullback position. Like the Roslev and Godos today were not that great. I mean, Roslev was the one who made the back pass that gave Hwang the easy goal. But again, like Anthony said, outside of just like 3 like dumb mistakes that just don't typically happen with Brentford, they were fine. Like they were very good against Wolves. They created over 2 expected goals. The big thing for them as well is Matthias Janssen started out on the bench and came off the bench in the second half. He's their free kick taker, which is obviously huge for Brentford. And Brentford is a team similar in the mold of Sean Dyche's Everton, where if they feel they can come up and press you and disrupt build-up play, they will do it, and they will do it effectively. Normally they do slink back into their defensive structure, but they were trying to press Wolves today. Obviously they fell behind early, but when they've played some of these lower tier teams, they will press them. They're 5th in passes per defensive action. So I think this one is a little bit more high scoring than expected. So I projected right at 2.5 goals. Over 2.5 is still at plus 120. And like Anthony says, every one of these Premier League matches goes over. So let's take an over.
Yeah. So Brentford's other biggest problem is that Flecken /
he's bad. He's just not good.
He's just bad. That minus 5.3 post shot coming into today. 3rd worst behind Brighton and Forest. So that's been an issue. They went from a good shot stopper in Raya over the past few years to a bad one. It has hurt their defensive numbers. It's hurt them at the margins. And that's where you see, all of these losses in games that have kind of been coin flippy. But, I think there's some positive regression coming ultimately for this Brentford team who's run really poorly. So it would be Brentford or nothing, but I like this Palace team as well. So, I'm kind of neutral on this game and don't really have a strong opinion on it overall.
All right. Sheffield United is 25-1 at Bet365 to beat Manchester City.
Way too short.
Could it grow? This is the type of line
they
you're
should
dealt.
Be like 50-1.
This is the type of line you're dealt when you get like a Terrence Crawford level boxer in a tune-up match.
What percentage of our listeners do you think know who Terrence Crawford is?
Those listeners in the greater Omaha area for sure, because Bud is a proud
beautiful
Omaha,
city,
Nebraska.
Omaha. Beautiful
proud
city,
Omaha,
Michael.
Nebraska native. But obviously, I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of the Sheffield United money line. Maybe we'll get 3 Man City red cards and get lucky here, BJ.
Maybe no Holland, no De Bruyne. Like that you could make a case there. Like that's about the only thing I can do.
They didn't play today either.
I know they didn't play today, so maybe you can make a case that without those 2, Sheffield could sneak in a transition attack and possibly do it. I have Sheffield.
Had a 28-1 winner.
We
have,
and Sheffield was, I believe, what were they, 15-1 against Villa, and just couldn't close it out at the very end on that Friday. I have Sheffield.
They didn't attempt a shot until the 85th minute.
I know, and that's what's going to take here, Anthony. I have Sheffield projected at 56-1. So if it grows to 60-1 I will be on Sheffield. Other than that, I am
the 25-1 has to double.
Yeah, basically we got to double that.
At 40 or 50, I would think about it, but no. Look,
no shot.
Sheffield's played better, right? Their defensive low block has been more effective.
We're getting it before the market takes notice of the Chris Wilder.
But that's the thing, though. Like it has taken a little bit of notice because the look ahead was like 2 3/4, and now it's like 2.5. So you got like a quarter goal bump. They're minus 2.5, minus 125. City is. And I don't want any part of the other side. I do think Haaland is ultimately back here for this match, at least to feature a little bit. Maybe plays a half, get him some match fitness here before next week. Before they're gonna have another break. Maybe they just hold him out. I mean, they could win this match without him pretty comfortably. But yeah, I mean, City today. The biggest thing for me right now, Stones goes out again. That's a big loss in terms of like title contention. We've seen this defense run so bad. Ederson has been a disaster from shot stopping perspective. Their defense has fallen off a good bit. Like that's the main area of regression for City. They don't dominate games at the same level they did last year because they let teams have the ball more and do more passing. But like Sheffield's not doing any of that. Sheffield didn't even try to attack Villa because like you can a little bit, but they didn't even try. This is a very much easy pass for me, like the easiest pass of the season.
Okay, Wolves and Everton now. Wolverhampton
easiest bet of the season, right here, Michael.
I know.
Over.
I know. Wolves plus 155. Everton is a slight underdog at plus 187 on the three-way line. The draw here pays out plus 230. I do think that it is pretty simple here. Like Everton, even today, it didn't make me think any less of them. The only thing that is concerning is you can see a couple players are just kind of out on their feet at times because the squad is so thin and they played so many games and every game is so high stakes and emotional, and the fixture pile up that we're in right now. So like that's the one thing here is that their lack of depth because of their shall we say crazy transfer policy over the past half decade is a little concerning, but I still think in the key areas of the pitch they'll be fine. Yeah, this has been one of the better, the stronger Premier League sides for the past couple months. Nothing's really changed here. Bet on team. They are the bet on toffees, BJ.
That key areas comment you just made made me think of the famous David Moyes quote. The Manchester United need to improve in multiple key areas, including creating chances, passing, and defending.
Yeah.
So Everton have improved in the key areas.
No, I'm saying that they're still set up. They're still set up well with personnel there. Like the strikers are fine. Yeah,
they're just a good soccer team.
They are a good team. There's really there's like, I have in my notes here, like they're just straight up good. Like there's just no way else to describe it.
There's nothing exciting happening at the club. It's just a good team this year. And here's the thing. Here's how you know they're a good team, because I know we have some skeptical listeners out there who say we just bet Everton every week, which we do. And as a podcast, we need to, acknowledge that we do that every week. And I think
they're good.
Well, that's just regression from last season when I was the only one betting them because they were getting dealt at like 11-1 every week.
We bet a lot of bad teams on this podcast. This is a good team that we bet.
Yeah, they're the best team I bet every year. They are a good bad team. That's a good way to put it. But here's the thing: when this match was played, because we're actually, it's kind of exciting. We're actually on the reverse fixtures now for the first time all season. We can say back when these two teams played last time. Well, back when these two teams played last time, Everton closed a pick'em at home.
That game should have had 8 goals in it.
And that game, that was the famous, just the most ridiculous 0-0 until the 89th minute when Stuttgart legend Sasa Kaslajcic came on and won it for Wolves. Hilarious that was like 3 months ago. But they closed a pick'em at home in that game. Now they're a little bit of a dog, but like basically a pick'em on the road. So that's how much the market has upgraded Everton. And that's in the context of the fact that Wolves are a lot better than we thought at the beginning of the year too. So Wolves went from like this team could get relegated market level rating. They've been improved. And despite that, Everton has improved so much that they're now being dealt a pick'em on the road at Wolves. With that being said, they were dealt a pick'em at Forest like 2 weeks ago. I don't really agree that they should be a significant favorite here. BJ.
I love Everton here. I have Everton projected at plus 115, and I don't really think I'm that wrong. I think the market is a little too high on Wolves. Everton this season, Michael, has won the expected goals battle against teams in the bottom half of the table every single match except for one. against Crystal Palace on the road. And if you remember, they scored very early and just kind of sat and defended for the rest of the match. So then Palace put up a bunch of expected goals against them. But other than that, they have outcreated their opponents near them in the bottom half of the table in every single match. And, Wolves obviously they've been giant killers this season at home. Like, they've beaten Tottenham, they've beaten City, and they've beaten Chelsea. But they actually haven't been that great against teams in the bottom half of the table. They have played 9 matches against teams in the bottom half, and we have a minus 3.5 expected goal differential. They're not
Everton
that
is
good.
Not a bottom half of the table team.
Well, they're currently sitting in the bottom of the table, Anthony.
That's not how that works, though.
But no, the moral of the story that wasn't my main point. My main point is that I don't really think Wolves is that great of a transition offense. Like, obviously today they, got gifted a couple transition attacks, but their final third to box entry conversion rate is 28%. That's 19th in the Premier League. So yes, they've hit on a couple transition attacks and converted them, and that's wonderful. But consistently getting the ball when they're getting these transition attacks from the ball in the final third in the penalty area, they have not been doing that. And even overall for the season, their underlying numbers, I mean, they're only a 1.25 non-penalty XG per 90 minute. That's 14th in the Premier League. The underlying numbers are really not that great. And who knows if Hwang is actually going to play in this match. He obviously went off an injury at halftime. Like, that's a big loss. We don't know if Neto is going to be back for this one. So if no Hwang, no Neto, leaves the Wolves attack severely limited. So, even just looking at pure expected goal differential, Everton's plus 5.3, Wolves is minus 8.2. So I don't agree that Everton should be a straight pick 'em. I think they should be a road favorite. So I love them drawing a bet at plus 104.
I should say that I will still probably bet Everton by the time this game kicks off. One thing about Wolves, we've always said on this podcast that they don't get a ton of chances, but they're very clinical. They're very efficient at scoring in the final third. After all those years of them being so good at getting chances and missing them all, they are finally a team overperforming their underlying numbers.
And who is that because of?
Hwang. Yeah.
Got 9 goals off of 4 expected or something like that? It's crazy. So yeah, if he's out, I mean, this is a good Everton spot.
Okay, the Manchester United roller coaster continued.
Oh my gosh,
we saw every bit of it in one match over the week.
That was amazing.
How are they still in the top half of the table?
They're gonna win the title, man. They're gonna win the title. This is they might win a double here.
I'm really enjoying the overreaction. It's
great.
This wasn't even as good as the Chelsea win.
It was actually wasn't really that good to begin with.
Yeah, and yet the one goal they conceded was hilariously fluky, but they're not going to get that opportunity against Forest. Here's the thing, we do this a lot. We say, okay, did this match say more about one team or the other? I will go to my grave saying that even though I cashed my United bet on Thursday or Monday, whatever the hell day it was, Tuesday. That said more about Villa than it did United.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Nottingham Forest's win against Newcastle probably said more about Newcastle. Transition defense, which we're going to get into when we get to the Liverpool match. I think when you look at these two teams right now, though, trend lines, I think Forest is much more likely trending up. We've seen now 180 minutes of Nuno ball. They got a really bad red card, unlucky against Bournemouth in a match that ended up being pretty even after the red card. Probably could have had a penalty too. It was kind of a dodgy handball decision. Net, they were fine that match. Then they completely destroy Newcastle on the break.
Yep, Lionel Messi came in and played for them.
It's what it felt like. Is his name Chris Wood now? Because
I don't know.
Chris Wood entered that match with 2.6 XG on the entire season. And he put up 2.3 XG and 3 goals in one match.
At St. James Park. Not at home. At St. James Park, where he used to play.
Revenge spot, buddy. So.
But yeah, I can't. I think, I still don't trust this Forest attack, but they can still hit United on the break here. United playing the Eriksen Mainu double pivot will be vulnerable in transition 1000%. And I'm still not really a believer in Højlund, even though he finally got his goal. Like he's at like 0.25 XG per 90. The ball just fell to him in the box. So I actually think this should be a straight pick 'em. So the fact that Forest is plus money on the draw no bet makes me lean toward the trees, ride the new manager wave that I don't know how much difference it's going to make in the long run, but in the short term, I like this change for Forest.
United, man, what a wild ride.
Who do they have? Who do they have coming out of the break?
I think they have a big match like during that fixture run where there's like half Premier League slates. I'm pretty sure there's a big matchup coming. I think maybe Tottenham actually.
Yeah, it actually is. Well, first we get to bet Wigan Athletic, Michael, on the money line at home against them in the FA Cup, and then at home against Tottenham, and then the reverse fixture against Wolves at Wolves.
There we go.
Jeez. Okay.
I actually see myself betting Man United against Tottenham, depending on where that line opens.
Well,
we will see.
We'll get there.
I'm just gonna keep doing this thing where I just bet on the fact that this team doesn't actually have an identity and they're just not really a real team. So in certain spots, you fade them, and then as soon as everybody's out on them again, you hop back on. So they get the big win against Chelsea. Everybody's all in. Then they get smoked by Bournemouth, uncompetitive Bayern. Everybody's out. Then they steal a result against Liverpool.
You sound like exactly what I said earlier this year with this team, which is you just just wait for the groundswell to go one way or the other, and you just go the other way with them. It's that simple. Right. They're like and the Buffalo Sabres.
Going to be back in, and then I'm going to be out again against Forest.
Then
they'll lose to Forest. Everybody will be out, and then I'll bet them against Tottenham, and then they'll beat Tottenham, and then everybody will be back in.
It took you 4 months, but you finally.
I think net we've come out ahead on our man. I think net we've come out ahead on our Manchester United fades. I have to check the tape, but I feel like BJ's bankroll is looking a little bit nicer this Christmas thanks to Eric Ten Hag and Manchester United Football Club.
Without a doubt.
Fulham and Arsenal up next. Fulham at 4-1 at home right now. Obviously, Arsenal is playing for this match on Thursday, so a little tricky here to break down. Gunners are minus 175. Draw is plus 350. Nothing for me.
Yeah,
you couldn't fool me.
Yeah, it's a pass. It's a pass for me too. I project this pretty close to around where the market has it. We'll obviously see what Arsenal looks like on Thursday against West Ham, but Fulham's a pretty similar team to West Ham in terms of what they do out of possession. So the reverse fixture was hilarious in this one because if you remember, Fulham scored on like a fluke Aaron Ramsdale pass, like right to Andres Pereira, and then they scored off a set piece at the very end. Otherwise, they did like literally nothing, and Arsenal created like 3 expected goals. So maybe Arsenal minus 1.5, just because they're the best team in the Premier League and they're going to win. They're going to win the title, as opposed to what other people say in this podcast. So, but outside of that, it's a pass.
Fulham is who we thought they were. Mm-hmm. After the last 3 matches, I've enjoyed my Fulham fades. 0 goals in the last 3 matches. 1 goal in the last 4 in all competitions since that Sun run they went on, where they scored 16-4. Since then, they got shut out at Newcastle. They got an own goal fluke against Everton. Shut out by Burnley. Shut out by Bournemouth.
Shut out by Arsenal.
They'll get Raul back, but I think this is also shut out by Arsenal. Question is, how many does Arsenal score? Do you want to lay the minus 170?
7.
I don't think they get to 7. My thought was I liked under 3, and I thought to myself, surely this line's going to be 3. And then I went on, and it's not even 3. So I'm probably going to pass. 2.5 just feels super janky because Fulham will somehow luck box a goal in this match. You just know it.
Mm-hmm.
And Arsenal probably wins 2-1. But I don't want to bet under 2.5. I'd only bet under 3. Under 2.5 is it's like plus 110. So if it get juiced up and I can get I'd even take a juice under 3 in this match. But we'll see what Arsenal does tomorrow before we bet that one.
This one also a little tricky to break down because Tottenham has to play on Thursday as well. They're playing Brighton, as we talked about at the top of the show, but they are hosting Bournemouth New Year's Eve. The Cherries are plus 350 road underdog. The draw here is 3-1. Spurs minus 143. You can almost take the handicap from the top of the show about Brighton. Apply it here. The one question being, the secret's out on Bournemouth now. Everybody is kind of well aware that the Andoni Iraola revolution is in full effect, and the Cherries are playing quite a good bit of ball. That said, still a decent price, BJ.
It is. I mean, you can still get Bournemouth at +1 here. Again, Tottenham's going to be without their 2 starting center backs. Here's a little stat for everybody. Since the beginning of November, Bournemouth has a +10 non-penalty XG differential per 90 minutes. That's the best in the Premier League, which is crazy to think about during that time frame. That's how good they've been and how they do it.
Don't check the schedule.
Yeah, don't check the schedule. Just take it at face value. But honestly, this matchup right here plays into exactly what Bournemouth wants to do. They want to do their hybrid press. They want to force high turnovers, and that is exactly what they did to Manchester United at Old Trafford. They did it to Fulham. They did it even Newcastle when they came to their park. Tottenham's going to try to build out of the back. Without their 2 starting center backs, they're not going to be as good in build-up. So Bournemouth should get a lot of transition opportunities here against a bad transition defense. So I like Bournemouth +1, -130. Again, just another good spot to keep backing them because, like you said, Michael, the market hasn't really caught on to how good they've been. Again, the schedule's been easy, but
that's debatable.
I think it still hasn't gone far enough.
I would push back on that, though, because like the Spurs closed -105 on the road at Bournemouth. Now they're only -150 at home. A little bit. But here's the thing. I love Alex Scott.
Oh, yeah.
The midfielder they've found here. He's been really impressive. Kluivert's been good. Semenyo is really fun in space. Awatara gets forward. Like, this team is fun. Like, they destroyed Fulham, and it was thoroughly enjoyable on Boxing Day to watch. And just like, here's the thing. When we talked about Iraola preseason, we said this Bournemouth team will be dangerous against the big teams because they can pressure them and rattle them and hassle them. And it's kind of what Vallecano did to the top teams in Spain. They were consistently like a good dog. And then it was like terrible for the first third of the season where like they got destroyed by all the good teams. And then we were like, well, it just isn't working. They don't have the talent. And then they beat the shit out of all the bad teams. So now it's like, okay, let's see it against a good, healthy team. Because yes, they did it to United, but like, we know they're not a good team. They did it to Fulham. We know they're not really a good team. And they did it to Newcastle with like the ultimate, that was like the worst of the injuries for Newcastle. And like the road Newcastle without any of their players is just like not that good of a team. So now this is the first like big test. I'm excited for it. I'm going to let you guys have fun with it. We'll see if I join in, but at this current number, I probably won't.
This will be a good number to watch to see what happens with Tottenham and Brighton because, you know, if Tottenham comes out and beats Brighton, there's a chance that this number could grow. Now, if you truly believe that, like we do, that Brighton's going to win that match, then I would bet Bournemouth now, or I'd have my finger on the bet the second that things go wrong here for Tottenham.
I almost forgot to mention Marcus Tavernier, just really impressive as well. 4 shot creating actions and 5 shots in his in the win. They got their first penalty in 2 years too. So all kinds of really fun things are happening. And I'm telling you, this Alex Scott kid is like a future star.
I know. He was amazing at Bristol. He was amazing at Bristol City. He was like the best midfielder in the championship last year.
He's a Channel Islands born player too. He's from Guernsey. So
yep.
It's always fun. Always love reaching out to our channel listeners on the Channel Islands. Okay.
Of which there are many.
Oh yeah, just tons.
Yeah.
Guernsey, Jersey, all of them. Liverpool and Newcastle up next. If I told you that Newcastle will be a 6-1 underdog against Liverpool on January 1st, before the season started, you would assume what had happened. Just
Injuries.
Newcastle ran out of players.
Yeah.
I mean, they're two big summer signings. Just like don't play for the team now. Harvey's hurt. Tonali's a gambler.
Yeah, but
and then they had injuries and like.
Yep.
What's the point? What's the point of the Saudi money if you don't spend any money?
I mean,
they're trying to skate the financial fair play stuff, Anthony. They're trying not to fall.
But they haven't actually spent that much money.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
spent
smarter.
Like
they're more clever than that. They're not just going to go out there and just splash cash. Like we'll catch up to them in 5 years.
Let the Saudi Pro League do that. I mean, they got to spend their money. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like I got to spend money somewhere.
You can't. This is.
I mean, they're paying Ronaldo $500 million. Like maybe they don't have. I mean, they have all the money, but
you don't.
come on.
Remind me to never have you run a racket.
Yeah.
Oh, just broadcast the Ponzi.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I like this.
I'm a specialist in getaway driving, so if you need me for that, I got you.
All right, perfect.
Like baby driver.
We were talking about how people are catching on to the Bournemouth thing. Everybody's caught on to Newcastle can't win on the road thing. They've won once in.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
They've won once in December so far. The schedule hasn't been tough. Forest, Luton, Tottenham, and Everton are four of the luminaries that beat Newcastle. We are a betting podcast. They won twice, I should say, in December because they also beat United on like the first day of the month. But we are a betting podcast. And perhaps the most important bit of betting hygiene is to buy low.
Contrarian.
How can you not play this number? Because the injuries aren't terrible anymore. They're not. Like they're as bad as they've been. And I get that this team has seemingly run out of gas. Kieran Trippier keeps playing for the other team, which is unfortunate.
It's a really big issue.
Who also at one point was a gambler, I might point out.
That makes it a little bit more skeptical, doesn't it? Huh?
Yeah, it does.
Nonetheless,
you do a double take.
Yeah. Nonetheless,
especially with the market prices,
we're not accusing him of anything here. In fact, we're backing him. We're backing him.
He might not start. They benched him.
Yeah,
and they put on Livramento at half last week, and then they gave up like 3 more XG.
I don't understand how there's not going to be more support on backing Newcastle to pip one here. And I know that Anthony went over this whole litany about how nobody goes to Anfield and gets a point, and then Man United with their D squad went there and got a point.
Arsenal
did it.
Arsenal got dominated, Michael.
Yeah, they got Fortress Anfield. Fortress Anfield has yet to be breached.
It's the only way they score goals because of the fortress.
Why aren't you guys?
You want me to act as though Liverpool didn't control both of those matches? You want me to pretend like I could?
Why would you not bet Newcastle here? Is my question at this price.
I don't know if their press is good anymore.
I don't know. The defensive transition is alarming.
They were so bad pressing against Nottingham Forest. What's concerning about that is because Nottingham Forest, Nuno is obviously in charge now, so they've switched to a 4-2-3-1, and Nottingham Forest is actually trying to build out of the back, control more possession instead of just Steve Cooper's 3-2-5. Let's just send the ball along and hope for the best. And Nottingham Forest destroyed them. Like they just played right through them the entire second half. And
first half too.
And first half as well. And so now I think Newcastle, and here's kind of why I like the under 3.5 here, which is a little juicy at -140, is they've obviously done these two different pressing structures where they have their normal 4-3-3 where it's man-to-man, beats you up, and it's really relying on being physical, having energy. They will have almost a full week's rest, which is like the first time they've had that in I don't know how many months. So you could make the case there that they have a little bit more energy than they've had when they've had to play matches every 2 to 3 days. But they've also had this pressing structure of a 4-5-1 where they've played more passive and they've done a little bit better in terms of a mid block there. And I think that's what you're going to see them here play against Liverpool, because the last thing that they want to do is get into a transition back and forth battle with Liverpool. And unfortunately, the previous matchups with these two teams have been I've had a couple red cards, so we haven't really learned much. Obviously, Liverpool had the smash and grab earlier this season when they got a red card early, and then Newcastle pretty much dominated them up until Darwin just poached a couple goals. But the best path to success here for Newcastle is to play passive and play in a defensive block. It's not to come out and try and press Liverpool and let them try to play in transition. And another thing about Liverpool, though, their defense has very quietly gotten a lot better. Over the last 6 matches, only allowed 4.5 expected goals, and for the season, only 1.1 non-penalty XG per 90 minutes. Still nowhere near the level of Arsenal, Anthony, but still a much better defense than what they were in the beginning of the season, not allowing as many transition opportunities. So I don't think this one has the makings of this like back and forth, like high scoring affair. I think it's going to be a lot of stale possession. Newcastle's going to hand Liverpool the ball and not really try and press them with that much intensity. So, and I only projected around 2.5 goals here. So I actually do like under 3.5 and pay the juice at -140.
How many times on this podcast do we say, I'm kind of hoping that Team A just gets absolutely worked so then I can get a big number on them in their next match, which is when I want to bet them. And then Nottingham Forest comes in and absolutely pants Newcastle. We get this number. It's crazy that you guys are more excited about this.
I mean, I have a little bit of value on Newcastle. I
do too.
The road form, the injuries, it's just not.
Yeah, that's all adding up to part of to why we're getting this number.
I'll tell you what, if we get Newcastle +1.5 at a normal number, like -110, -120, I will be there with you, Michael.
Just go to the money line. 6-1. It's 6-1 on a very good team.
Okay, well, if they get to 7.5, 8-1, I'll be there.
You can't win at Anfield, Mike.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry. Bet the draw. Bet the double checks.
Nobody wins there. No,
nobody has won.
No, it is the transition defense for me. I don't think Liverpool's playing their best. The attacking group has not been good. I mean, we can say what it is. Like, I love Darwin Nunez. He scored a nice goal against Burnley, but like he's been really struggling of late. Diaz is hurt again, way out of form, and has not been the same player since the knee injuries and all the stuff going on with him. Gakpo doesn't really fit the system whatsoever. It was kind of like a panic buy last January, and he doesn't really fit with how these team plays right now because they don't have a functioning midfield. And then there's the midfield, which like Endo's been solid but not special. And then they're kind of just rotating all of these pieces in and out and trying to figure out what the best thing is. And I think it's worked because they've kept the squad pretty fresh and it enabled them to not wear down and press it with intensity still. And I think it played a role in why they dominated the second half of that game. But like, this total is a little high. As bad as Newcastle's defense has been of late, this total is high to me. And I think Newcastle does need to take a more pragmatic approach. It's kind of similar to the United match, where they're going to sit deeper and try to absorb pressure and get one-on-ones. They'll find more success on the break, I think, than United did. But I also don't think they'll be as hopeless defensively as United was in that match, conceding over 2.5 XG. So, yeah, it's under or nothing for me. But again, I'm just like so scared of the transition numbers for Newcastle defensively right now that if they let Liverpool get on the run here, like they could just laugh and score 3 or 4 themselves. Kind of what Tottenham just did to them. So I'm like kind of scared. But no, I see your point 100%. Like from a buy low perspective, Newcastle is clearly the team. But do we wait for like a sign of life because they haven't had a sign of
right? Well, no, I think
Fulham. And then
what I wanted to mention. What I wanted to mention is now that they are out of Europe, they're out of the League Cup, we're going to get back to the Newcastle of last season where they're basically just playing one match every week, fully healthy, full-on physical press, and there will be plenty of times to buy low on them. This is somewhat one of them. I agree with you, Michael, but there's going to be so many great opportunities over the second half of the season to buy on Newcastle.
I think you guys are nuts. All right, we'll wrap up the Premier League quickly with West Ham and Brighton. This is on Tuesday, January the 2nd. West Ham is a home favorite, +137. Brighton +180. The draw is +275. Brighton playing Spurs on Thursday. So once again, a little bit tricky to break down here. I like Brighton at the like kind of in the vacuum right now, not knowing what we will find out in the match against Spurs on Thursday, but don't really have much more to add than what we've kind of talked about with West Ham and Brighton here. BJ, anything?
I love Brighton here. The previous match between these two was a hilarious match. Basically, West Ham put on a counterattacking clinic. If you remember, that was when Brighton was playing incredibly open and committing so many guys forward and basically just getting in one-on-ones in transition. Well, now Brighton's been playing a little more pragmatic. They've been a little bit more hesitant at being aggressive. Last 10 matches for the Seagulls, they've only conceded 1.12 non-penalty XG per 90 minutes. Been incredibly good with their counter pressing. And for West Ham, in that match, they were basically perfect out of possession in their low block. I don't see a scenario where they can repeat that performance again here. It is at home. Brighton have struggled breaking down low blocks. But again, like I mentioned for West Ham and Arsenal, West Ham has been pretty bad defensively against teams in the top half of the table. They've played 8 matches against top 10 teams, and they have conceded 18.6 expected goals. Not to mention, they're allowing the third most shots and the second most box entries. And like I mentioned with Brighton, like they are dealing with some injuries in their attack, but they have incredible depth where losing a guy like Matoma is big, but they can rotate guys around where the drop off is really not as big as it would be comparatively to other teams. So, and even if we just look at raw expected goal differential, I mean, Brighton's plus 2.8 in the season and West Ham's minus 4.6. So I don't really see a scenario why West Ham should be favored. I understand they're at home, but they are not a better team than Brighton. And what this line is saying is that Brighton would only be a slight favorite on a neutral field, which I think they should be a more significant favorite. So I like Brighton. John O'Bet, plus 114 at West Ham.
All right. Let's move it on then to the rest of Europe. Just La Liga and Serie A. We'll be quick here. Anthony, anything? Or what do you have in these two leagues?
Celta Vigo plus 145 every week. Every week.
Yep.
Back at home against what I think is like a pretty league average Betis side. I don't really think there's much of a difference between these two teams in quality. So I got plus 145 at home. I'm going to start taking some money lines here because I need to get back my losses. So I got to chase some higher payouts. And thus, I'm on Vigo money line.
BJ?
Well, obviously, I'll be on Atletico Madrid against Girona. That's obvious. But for lack of sounding redundant on this podcast, I think the last 3 weeks I've done a Girona fade. I also like Almeria, plus 1 against Osasuna. Almeria is bad. They have not won a match yet this season in La Liga. They've lost 2 of their best attackers, and still they are 6th in non-penalty XG per 90 minutes. And they're playing an Osasuna side that is a very below average team in terms of underlying data. They're 14th offensively in non-penalty, 15th defensively. A team that's trying to hold more possession and try and be more of a team that builds out of the back. And they're just not as good at doing it. Now, Almira's defense is terrible, but there's not a world that Osasuna, a team that should be in the bottom half of the table, should be laying a full goal against Almeria. So I like Almeria plus 1.
All right, let's get to some underdogs now. Three-leg parlay is going to come out around 74-1. Maybe put some of that Christmas money back in your pocket if we can hit all 3. Starting with Anthony's La Liga special here.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Cadiz plus 225 on the road against Granada. A matchup of what is essentially 2 of the worst teams in La Liga overall. But I think I'm getting the team that's trending upward, a team that's been creating more chances of late and does have some positive regression coming from an attacking perspective. They've actually created the least expected goals in the entire league, tied with Las Palmas, according to the FBref data. They've drawn 5 consecutive matches. It's not a team that wins very often. They have 2 wins all year, but they're facing a Granada team that is by far the worst in the league. Changed their manager and got worse overall. And really, I think in a matchup of 2 of the worst teams, I'm getting the better of the worst teams at plus 225. So give me Cadiz on the road.
Coming into the season, we had a pretty long debate about who was the 3rd, who was the 4th best team in the Premier League, and it was always between Newcastle, Liverpool, Arsenal. And one of those teams, Newcastle, is 6-1 on the money line this weekend because they are in the middle of a 1-win-in-5 slump. Lost a couple in a row. Were just pasted by Nottingham Forest. That performance came on the heels of a loss to Luton Town. This is the epitome of a buy low on a good team, BJ. 6-1 for Newcastle at Anfield, where Anthony has famously declared nobody's ever won. So Newcastle United become the first team in the history of soccer to win in the hallowed ground of Anfield. What do you got?
How about another buy low? Brentford plus 230 at Crystal Palace. Brentford team that's obviously in a bad run of form, but still putting up great underlying data. And this is another situation where they are going to play more attacking, probably set up in their 4-3-3, be more attack-minded against a Crystal Palace team that has been playing more open, trying to press higher, trying to disrupt build-up play. And Brentford generally has been a pretty good team at playing through pressure and building up out of the back. In terms of Crystal Palace here at home, they are overvalued a little bit. I know Eze and Elise are back and healthy, and they're obviously been very good at attack, had a good game against Chelsea, but I really still don't trust this Crystal Palace defense, and Brentford is due for a lot of positive regression. So I like the Bees plus 230.
Newcastle, Cadiz, and Brentford, 74-1.
We hit 2 out of 3 again last weekend.
Yeah, we're getting
It's always me. It's always me whenever we hit 2 out of 3. Like I think the last 3 that we've come up short, it's been my underdog that is lost. So I apologize to the listeners.
Was a good bet though.
Yeah,
it was. But the funny thing is that if anybody knows me personally, throughout my entire sporting career, I am always somebody who comes up short in the big moments. So this really isn't that shocking.
We'll dive into that in next week's episode.
It sounds like we need a fainting chair for that one. Okay, best bets now. I'll go first because BJ just kind of laid it out. The one that I like Brentford on the money line at Crystal Palace plus 230. This is a team that underlying numbers suggest that they are about to start trending up. What do you got, BJ?
I like Brighton. Draw no bet plus 115 on the road at West Ham on Tuesday. This last match was quite hilarious because West Ham put on a counterattacking clinic, created 3 expected goals. But that was when Brighton was playing more open, playing more aggressively. Now they've been much better defensively. They're only allowing 1.12 non-penalty XG per 90 minutes over their last 10 matches. They're doing a good job of building up, using central progression. And basically what West Ham is going to have to do is basically be perfect out of possession like they were in that previous match. But they haven't been that good against good competition, allowing 18.6 expected goals in their 8 matches against teams in the top half of the table. So I really don't think West Ham should be favored here at home. So I like Brighton on the road. Draw no bet. Plus 115.
I'm going to use Brighton tomorrow. Draw no bet, even money against Spurs. I just think that there's not really any difference between these two teams from an underlying perspective. The only advantage Spurs have is in goal. There's some defensive regression coming for Spurs. They're shorthanded. Their best defensive midfielder, their 2 best center backs. Brighton's healthier at the moment. They're at home. I like them. Draw no bet.
Okay, that does it for 2023 here on Wondergoal. Thank you to everybody who's listened all year long. We wish you all a great New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. We will see you in a couple weeks when the Premier League kicks back up. Until then, best of luck with all your bets, and thank you very, very much for being there for us.